What if everything Freud told us about why we suffer was only half the story? Freud said you are a prisoner of your past, that your childhood wounds, your hidden desires, your unconscious drives, these are the invisible hands that move you through life, whether you want them to or not. And for a long time, the world believed him. Therapists believed him. You probably believed him too, at least a little. But there was another man, quieter, less dramatic. He never became a myth the way Freud did. He didn't have the same commanding presence, the same gift for building an intellectual empire. And yet, what he said changed the lives of millions of people who never even heard his name. His name was Alfred Adler, and his idea was radical in its simplicity. You are not driven by your past. You are pulled by your future. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you might see your entire life differently. Sigmund Freud and Alfred Adler were once colleagues. They sat in the same room, debated the same ideas, drank coffee in Vienna at the turn of the 20th century while the world was still trying to understand what the mind even was. Freud was the elder, the established one, the man who had already shaken the foundations of medicine by saying that mental suffering wasn't just a physical problem, it was a psychological one. That was genuinely revolutionary. Adler admired him. For a while, they worked together, but Adler was never truly a disciple. He had his own mind, his own observations, his own quiet rebellion forming beneath the surface. The break came in 1911, and it was not polite. Freud believed that at the core of human motivation was one thing: sex, or more precisely, libido, a kind of primal psychic energy rooted in pleasure, desire, and the tension between what we want and what society allows. He believed the unconscious was a dark basement full of repressed memories and forbidden urges, and that understanding a person meant going down into that basement, sorting through the wreckage of their childhood and finding the root of their dysfunction. Adler looked at the same human beings and saw something completely different. He didn't see people driven by desire. He saw people driven by a feeling, a very specific, very universal feeling. He called it the inferiority feeling, not inferiority complex. That phrase came later and people misuse it constantly. The original idea was simpler and far more compassionate. Every human being at some point feels small, feels not enough, feels like they're behind or broken or less than others around them. And according to Adler, this isn't pathology. This is the human condition. Think about it. You were a child once, physically small, dependent on others for everything, unable to do most of the things the adults around you could do. That experience, that felt gap between who you are and who you want to be, leaves a mark. Not a wound, necessarily. A direction, a motivation. Adler said that everything we do, every ambition we pursue, every relationship we build or destroy, every habit we form, all of it is a response to that original feeling of not enough. We spend our lives trying to overcome it, to compensate for it, to prove it wrong. And here is where it gets fascinating. Freud said, look backward. Understand your past, and you will understand yourself. Your present behavior is determined by forces you don't control and can barely access. The best you can do is become aware of them. That's the goal of psychoanalysis: awareness of the prison bars, even if you can't remove them. Adler said, look forward. Your past does not determine you. What determines you is the goal you are moving toward, often without knowing it. The question isn't what happened to you. The question is, what are you trying to achieve? This distinction is not small. It changes everything about how you relate to yourself. Under Freud's model, if you are anxious, depressed, or stuck in destructive patterns, you ask, what is buried in my past that is causing this? You become an archaeologist of your own suffering. You dig, and sometimes that digging is genuinely useful, understanding trauma, recognizing patterns, seeing where your defenses come from. These are real and valuable things. But under Adler's model, you ask a different question. You ask, what purpose is this serving right now? What goal is this behavior helping me move toward or away from? Let's take a concrete example. Someone who constantly procrastinates. Under a Freudian lens, you might look for a fear of failure rooted in critical parents, or a deep ambivalence about success, or some unconscious conflict between drive and self-punishment. Under Adler's lens, you ask, what does procrastination protect this person from? And the answer is often surprisingly clear. If you never fully try, you never fully fail. If you always have the excuse of not having started, your potential remains untested and therefore safe. The procrastination isn't a symptom of something buried, it's a strategy, chosen at some level to manage the fear of being exposed as not enough. That reframe is quietly revolutionary because it implies something Freud's model doesn't: choice. And with choice comes responsibility. Not blame. Adler was very clear about this, but responsibility. The difference matters enormously. Now, both of these men were trying to explain the same thing. Why do people suffer, and what can we do about it? But they drew the map of the mind very differently. Freud's map was vertical. There's the conscious mind, and beneath it, the unconscious, vast, dark, ungovernable. The ego trying to balance the demands of primitive drives and the rules of civilization. Neurosis as the result of that impossible tension. His is a tragic vision in the literary sense. Noble, a little bleak. Adler's map was horizontal. There's you, and there's the world. And the relationship between you is social, dynamic, and changeable. He introduced a concept he considered perhaps the most important in all of psychology: Gemeinschaftsgefühl. It's a German word that's almost impossible to translate perfectly. Community feeling, social interest, the sense of belonging to something larger than yourself. For Adler's health, real psychological health, was not the absence of dysfunction. It was the degree to which a person was able to feel connected to others, to contribute, to care about something beyond their own inner world. He believed that every major psychological problem at its root was a problem of disconnection, a retreat into the self, a failure of social interest. This is not a moral judgment, it's a clinical one, he observed over and over again. That people who were suffering were people who were oriented primarily around themselves, their own fears, their own superiority or inferiority, their own safety. And people who were recovering were people who were finding their way back toward others. Think about a moment in your own life when you felt most alive, most like yourself. Chances are good it involved something beyond yourself, a project you cared about, a person you loved, a moment of genuine connection or contribution. Adler would not be surprised. One of the most beautiful and underappreciated things Adler said was this: the meaning of life is contribution, not success. Not happiness, exactly. Contribution. The sense that your presence here makes some small difference to the fabric of things. This stands in almost total contrast to the Freudian picture of the self as a kind of battlefield between desire and repression. And yet, and this is important, neither man was entirely right or entirely wrong. Freud gave us things we cannot give back. The idea that the mind has depths we don't have conscious access to is not only true, it's now supported by decades of neuroscience. The way early relationships shape our nervous system, our attachment patterns, our default assumptions about whether the world is safe. This is real. Trauma is real. Unconscious processes are real. You cannot simply decide your way out of all of them. But Adler gave us something Freud couldn't. He gave us agency. He gave us a model of the human being as someone who is not simply the product of their history, but the author of their direction. Someone who can, with awareness and effort, choose different goals, build different habits of perception, learn to feel less alone. The philosopher who brought Adler back into popular conversation in recent years, Ichiro Kishimi, put it simply: we are not determined by our experiences. but the meaning we give them is self-determined. That sentence is worth sitting with for a moment. You cannot change what happened to you. That part is Freud's territory, and it's closed. But you can change what you decide it means about you and what you decide to reach toward because of it. That part belongs to Adler, and it's always open. In practice, what does this look like? It looks like someone who grew up feeling invisible, choosing at some point to stop using that old wound as a reason to stay small, and instead letting it fuel a genuine drive to be seen, to create, to connect. Not denying the wound, not pretending it didn't happen, but refusing to let it be the final word. It looks like recognizing that some of your most persistent struggles are not failures of willpower or evidence of deep brokenness. They are strategies that made sense at some point and simply haven't been updated. And strategies can be changed. It looks like understanding that the antidote to most psychological pain is not introspection alone, but connection. Doing something for someone, contributing, finding a place in the world that feels like yours. Freud and Adler started in the same room and ended up with two very different visions of what a human being is. Freud saw us as creatures of depth, shaped by hidden forces, haunted by the past. Adler saw us as creatures of direction, capable of growth, fundamentally social, and more free than we think. The truth, as always, probably lives somewhere in between. You are both. You carry your history, and you choose your direction. You are shaped by forces you didn't choose, and you are the author of what you do with them. But if you've spent years believing that your past is your destiny, that what happened to you is who you are, then Adler's quiet voice might be exactly what you need to hear right now. You are not defined by where you came from. You are defined by where you are going, and that you get to choose. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Don't forget to like the video, and if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.